Zyra's world had collapsed the day the Zarkali slavers took her. Once a proud scholar of her people, she was now nothing more than a prisoner, forced into a breeding program meant to produce hybrid offspring for their empire. The very thought made her stomach churn. She had fought, screamed, clawed at her captors, but nothing changed. Her cell was cold and metallic, nothing more than a sterile prison where she awaited her so-called mate. Zyra had lost count of how many times she had rejected the ones they forced into her presence. Some were like her, alien captives with defeated eyes. Others were monstrous creatures with cruel smiles. But she never gave in. Never. Tonight, they brought someone new. The guards shoved a man inside and locked the door behind him. Zyra didn't bother to look at him at first. She expected another soulless beast or a broken soul. But then, she heard his voice. "Hey, are you okay?" Her gaze snapped toward him. He was human. Zyra had seen humans before, sold as mercenaries or prisoners, but none like this one. His dark hair was unruly, his jaw marked by old wounds, and his eyes. They weren't dead like the others. They burned with something fierce. She turned away. "Don't waste your breath. You won't get what they want from me." The man chuckled softly. "Yeah, well, I don't plan on giving them what they want either." Her brows furrowed as she finally met his gaze. "Then why are you here?" He leaned against the wall, exhaling sharply. "Because I got caught trying to sabotage their operation." His smirk held defiance. "Figured I'd blow up one of their facilities, maybe free some folks. Instead, I got thrown in here." Zyra's heart skipped a beat. A human who fought against the Zarkali? That was rare. No, impossible. Most species feared them, obeyed them, or at least tolerated their rule. "You're a fool," she murmured. He grinned. "Yeah, but I'd rather be a fool than a coward." For the first time in a long while, Zyra felt something stir inside her, a spark of hope. The guards assumed that locking them together would break their spirits, but they didn't realize they had just put two rebels in the same cell. The man who introduced himself as Ryan leaned in close and whispered, "I have a plan to get us out." Zyra's breath caught. "Escape? That's impossible." "Not if we work together." His voice was confident, steady. "They think I'm a mindless prisoner. They don't know I swiped a keycard before they threw me in here." Her eyes widened. "You stole a—" "Shh." He placed a finger to his lips, then pulled the small device from beneath his sleeve. "We only have one shot. When the guard brings food, we make our move." Zyra had spent so long fighting alone, resisting alone, but now, standing beside this reckless, stubborn human, she felt something different, something dangerous. Trust. When the door slid open for the food tray, Ryan moved like lightning. He lunged forward, slamming the guard against the wall. Zyra didn't hesitate. Her instincts, dulled by captivity but not lost, took over. She grabbed the fallen weapon from the guard's belt and fired at the security cameras. The red glow of the alarm flared instantly, and sirens howled through the corridors. "Move!" Ryan grabbed her hand, pulling her forward. They sprinted through the metal halls, their footsteps pounding against the cold floors. Zyra's heart pounded, with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. She had imagined escape 1,000 times, but now it was real. Now, it was happening. "Left!" Ryan shouted. They skidded into another corridor, barely dodging a group of guards running toward their former cell. "Where are we going?" Zyra asked between breaths. "Hangar Bay," Ryan answered. "They have dozens of ships. We steal one and get the hell out of here." Zyra had no better plan, so she kept running. The scent of metal and recycled air filled her lungs, the prison walls closing in around them. A squad of Zarkali soldiers blocked their path. Ryan cursed, yanking Zyra behind a corner as a barrage of energy blasts burned into the walls. He lifted the stolen blaster and fired back, striking one enemy square in the chest. "Stay behind me," he ordered. Zyra bristled at the command but obeyed, firing her own shots while staying close to cover. More guards poured in from the opposite end of the hallway. They were closing in. Rian's eyes darted around. "There!" He pointed to a vent panel on the wall. Without hesitation, he pried it open, the metal groaning under his strength. "Go!" He pushed Zyra inside first, then followed, yanking the panel shut just as the guards turned the corner. Zyra crawled forward through the tight metal tunnel, barely able to move. Ryan was right behind her, his breath warm against her back. "You?" "Sure this leads to the hangar?" she whispered. "Not exactly." She shot him a glare. "What?" "It leads to the maintenance decks. From there, we can slip into the hangar unseen." Zyra clenched her jaw but kept moving. It wasn't the worst plan. Certainly better than getting shot. They emerged into a dimly lit room filled with stacks of spare parts, half-built droids, and discarded fuel cells. Ryan crept forward, peeking through a narrow window. "Guards everywhere," he muttered. "We need a distraction." Zyra scanned the room and spotted a stack of volatile plasma containers. "What about those?" Ryan followed her gaze and grinned. "Now, you're thinking like a rebel." They worked quickly. Ryan rigged a few explosives to the containers while Zyra hacked into the control panel, dimming the hallway lights to give them more cover. "Ready?" he asked. Zyra inhaled deeply. "Do it!" Ryan pressed the detonator. The explosion rocked the station. Fire and debris burst into the air, triggering secondary alarms across the facility. The guards turned in panic, abandoning their positions to investigate the blast. "Now's our chance," Ryan said. They bolted into the hallway, slipping past the distracted soldiers. Smoke and flickering emergency lights shrouded them in shadows as they darted through the corridors. Finally, they reached the hangar. A fleet of Zarkali ships lined the massive docking bay, sleek and menacing under the artificial lights. A few workers remained, too focused on securing the ships to notice them, at least for now. Rian nudged Zyra. "See that?" He pointed to a smaller vessel on the far side. "That one's fast and lightly guarded, perfect for a quick escape." They weaved through the hangar, sticking to the shadows. Every second felt like an eternity. Zyra's muscles tensed, expecting an ambush at any moment. Then, just as they reached the ship's ramp, a voice shouted from behind. "Stop them!" Zyra turned in time to see a squad of armored soldiers storming toward them. Ryan cursed. "Go! Get inside!" She ran up the ramp, frantically punching the controls to fire up the engines. The ship hummed to life, power surging through its systems. Ryan held off the guards, firing rapidly while retreating backward into the ship. A shot grazed his arm, making him stumble. Zyra gasped. "Ryan!" He pushed forward, teeth gritted in pain. "I'm fine, just get us out of here." She sealed the ramp and raced to the pilot's seat. The unfamiliar controls made her heart hammer, but there was no time to hesitate. The Zarkali ships around them were already powering up. "We're not gonna make it," Zyra muttered. "Yes, we are," Ryan said firmly. He slammed a switch, locking the ship's targeting system onto a fuel reserve across the hangar. Zyra's eyes widened. "You wouldn't." "Watch me." He pressed the trigger. The blast hit the reserve tanks, igniting a chain reaction. Fire engulfed the hangar as enemy ships were torn apart in the explosion. Zyra yanked the controls, sending their ship barreling through the firestorm. The force pressed her into her seat as they shot into space, the prison station shrinking behind them. Only when the danger was far behind did she finally allow herself to breathe. She turned to Ryan. His face was pale, his wounded arm still dripping blood, but he was grinning like a madman. "We made it," he said. Zyra's chest tightened. She reached out, her fingers brushing against his hand. "Thanks to you." He chuckled, weakly. "Nah, thanks to us." She didn't pull away from his touch. For the first time in years, Zyra was free. And it wasn't just freedom she had gained. It was the start of something new, something neither of them had expected. The stars stretched before them, vast and endless. Zyra sat in the co-pilot's seat, staring at the swirling void of space. The ship hummed softly beneath her fingertips, its controls foreign, but strangely comforting. She had never imagined escaping, never thought she would see the universe beyond her cell again. Yet here she was, free. But she wasn't alone. Rian sat beside her, his injured arm hastily bandaged. His breathing was steady, but exhaustion weighed on his features. Still, his lips curled into that same reckless grin. Not bad for a first date. Huh? Zyra shot him a look, but her lips twitched slightly. You consider getting shot at and nearly dying a date? He chuckled. Could be worse. At least we survived. A small silence settled between them. The adrenaline was fading, leaving only the quiet aftermath. Zyra turned to him, her voice softer now. Why did you fight so hard to free me? Ryan exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. Because it wasn't just about you. It was about all of us. The Zarkeli take people, break them, turn them into something less than human, or less than whatever you are. His gaze met hers. I wasn't gonna let them do that to you. Zyra's heart clenched. She had spent so long believing no one cared, that her suffering was just another unnoticed tragedy in the galaxy. Yet this human, reckless and stubborn, had fought for her without expecting anything in return. She swallowed, her voice barely above a whisper. You're different from the others. He tilted his head. How so? You don't see me as just another captive. You see me. Something flickered in his eyes. Something deeper. Unspoken. Yeah, he said quietly. I do. Her fingers curled against the console. A part of her wanted to push him away, to guard herself against the dangerous warmth creeping into her chest. But another part of her, one she thought had died long ago, wanted to hold on to this moment. Where do we go now? She asked. Ryan leaned back, staring at the stars. Wherever you want, she hesitated. I don't have a home anymore. Then we'll find one, he said simply. His certainty, his unwavering confidence, made her chest tighten. For the first time in years, she felt something beyond survival. Hope. Her fingers brushed against his, hesitant but deliberate. He didn't pull away. Instead, his hand turned, his rough fingertips grazing hers in silent understanding. No words were needed. They had escaped the prison, but something told Zyra that this was only the beginning. Of what, she didn't know yet. But she wanted to find out. Together.